Well, welcome everybody to the Fasting Transformation Summit, where we are uncovering the most ancient, inexpensive, and powerful healing strategy known to mankind, fasting. I'm your host, Dr. David Jockers, and really excited about today's guest. I have got Naomi Whittel, who is one of the leading pioneers really when it comes to fasting and the idea of autophagy, and she's going to go through her story today. And I really found out about Naomi through her book, Glow 15, and her docuseries, The Skinny on Fat, which was incredible. But she has been out in the press for a long time, trailblazing the road for people like me to come across and put on something like this Fasting Transformation Summit. And so she's widely recognized as the one to watch in the wellness from within space. Named by Prevention the nation's leading female innovator in the natural products industry, she's hailed as a trailblazer and an advocate of purity and potency in nutraceuticals. She's the CEO of Twin Lab, which, if you're in the health space, you've heard of that nutraceutical company. And she continues to deliver on her promise to help millions thrive with award-winning supplements they know will truly help them. A premier wellness partner for QVC, Naomi has been recognized as one of the leading innovators in the natural products industry by Whole Foods magazine and their exclusive Who's Who of manufacturers and suppliers. Her story and products have been lauded by the Wall Street Journal, The Doctors, Dr. Oz, Shape, Access Hollywood, Natural Solutions, Good Morning America, The Today Show, and more. And so, Naomi, welcome to the Fasting Transformation Summit.
Oh my, I am so thrilled to be part of what is my absolute favorite topic in the whole world, and something that I would say has impacted my life probably more than any other tool that I've ever used. And it's a tool, fasting, that I've been using really since I was in my teens. It is the most unbelievable and powerful tool. And even last night I was on the phone with a leading researcher in the area of the microbiome. And I'm really excited to share with you some of the brand new, cutting edge research as it relates to what happens when you're going through a fast for your microbiome.
Oh, I love it. We'll definitely cover that today. And so let's share your story and really how you got going with this, because you said you've been fasting since you were a teenager. So how did that all start?
So for me, what happened was I have always struggled with autoimmune disorders. So the first autoimmune disorder that really manifested for me was on my skin. And that manifestation was with eczema. So there's a deep inflammation within my body. And I was born with these autoimmune disorders, and they've continued to manifest in different ways, from endometriosis to I have mast cell activation. And so growing up in Europe, I was born in Switzerland on a biodynamic farm, and my father's a chemist, and my parents were and have always been 100% committed to the healthy, natural way of living. So I never went to conventional doctors. I never had the experience of antibiotics. I mean, none of that. So living a very healthy lifestyle, I still was covered in this very embarrassing and uncomfortable eczema that would bleed and it would pus, and just I couldn't get to the place where I had it under control. And so using natural solutions to solve for it was what we did every day. So from the foods that I ate, the anti-inflammatory foods that I ate, unprocessed, all of those things all helped. But ultimately, I couldn't push the inflammation down as much as I needed to. And so when I was in my late teens is when I was really introduced to the power of fasting. And at that time, I would be doing juice fasts, right? So I didn't know that I could benefit so much more from doing the different types of fastings that we do now. So I hadn't learned about intermittent fasting at that time. I didn't know that water fasting would be good for me. I knew that it was very important as it related to, more of the religious ways of fasting. But at that time I was doing juice fasting. So I would typically do pretty intense juice fast for 7 to 10 days. And I would mix that with different detox methodologies. And they were very valuable. And then typically once a week, I would do like a watermelon juice fast. And that was also very valuable at diluting, the inflammation in my body and working as a diuretic. So did that for years. And over the past, I would say it was probably the past 5 or 6 years, what I do in my life is I travel all over the globe and I look for the solutions that may be coming from nutritional ingredients. They may be coming from plants. They may be coming from technologies all over the globe. So it could be different universities, different medicine men, women. I mean, it's just, there's so much insight that is wise from, generations and centuries, but there's also incredible technologies and universities. So my work has been, and the work that I did when I sold my company to Twin Lab about 2.5 years ago, and I was their CEO for just over 2 years. I've now gone back to really doing the work that I think brings the most value to so many different people. And that is, connecting these dots with these ingredients and bringing them into the marketplace where we know the entire supply chain. So what we're putting into our body is really pure. But what I've discovered over the past 5 or 6 years, and this is coming through so much of what's going on at the university level, is that we can do an intermittent fast where we're not eating for approximately, there's a lot of ways to do it, but what works for me and where I see the most research being is the 16 hours of not eating and then 8 hours of eating. And here in the US, on average, we will eat for 16 hours and then not eat for 8 hours. So sort of flipping that on its head and utilizing that as a tool, which I've been doing now for 5-6 years. And that has helped me more than anything in really reducing my inflammation. And then what it also does is in those 16 hours, you're able to activate autophagy. And we know that autophagy is like this natural and biological cleansing, detox, recycling that goes on in each and every one of our cells. So if we think we have 37 trillion cells, we have this natural process that most of us never had even heard of. That's like the little doctor inside each cell that sort of cleans up and dictates what needs to be removed and recycled. And so our cells are able to behave like they did when they were younger. And that's just one of the numerous incredible benefits that we can get from a short intermittent fast.
Yeah, I love it. I've been doing really more of an 18-6 myself. And then I do 2 days where I do a 24-hour water fast. I've been doing, 18-6 I've been doing for 5 years. And then the 2-day water fast, I just started over the last 6 months. And I find it to be like really easy because my body's so fat adapted.
Yes.
And has definitely brought down my inflammation because my mom has psoriasis and I have psoriasis on my knees. She actually has it on her elbows and multiple different places. So I have that genetic risk, right? And in a sense, it's already started to express itself, but I keep it down really with fasting and nutrition. So I love this talk, fasting for skin health, and really going into this. And so let's talk about how nutrition and the microbiome, you had mentioned that term, nutrition, the microbiome, gut health play a role with our overall skin health.
That's so great. And I love that you're doing the 18-6 because, again, there is so much new research that's coming out constantly. The difference between 16 and 18 is really significant.
Yeah.
And so for those, I've been so accustomed to doing the 16 where, I stop eating at 8 p.m. or a little bit earlier, and then I start at lunchtime. And that's been so normal for me that I've utilized that. But the 12 to 14 is really not bringing very much value at all. But once you get to the 16 and then what you were saying with 18, there's just so much benefit. So I love it. And I love talking about how fasting benefits the skin because I've been the human guinea pig for that, for so long. And for me, my eczema had such a negative impact on my life I was so ashamed and so embarrassed. Like I would never let anyone see my arms. Like right now you can see everything, and my hands, and I was so ashamed of it, and it was so uncomfortable that I would cover myself. And really, when I finally sort of came out and exposed my skin, it was detrimental to my confidence because it impacted my friendships, it impacted my life. And it was at that time when I was just so, I was an early teen, and it was just so negatively impactful. So I've really committed my life to figuring out ways to, reduce that inflammation for myself, and then also share that with other people. And so with the skin, the way that it works, and I think it's so incredibly fascinating, is just like in our gut. And we know that so many of our skin issues begin in our gut. So we've got our microbiome in our gut. We also have a microbiome, all over our skin, and the skin on our face, on our arms, underneath our arms. Those are all different types of microbiome. So when we do an intermittent fast, when we do a 5-day fast, we're actually resetting our microbiome in different ways. So a very good friend of mine, a medical doctor, Dr. Mike Hoagland, he works actually at Ubiome. And he was very excited about everything that we did with the Real Skinny on Fat. And so he did a 5-day water fast. And what we did is we looked at his microbiome before he started the 5-day water fast. And he had, it wasn't in the condition that he really wanted it to be. Like his lactobacillus was low. He had a lot of bad bacteria in his gut. And so when he started the 5-day water fast, essentially what happened is all of the bacteria in his gut began to reduce. And as it reduced, the bad bacteria died off, much of the good bacteria died off. But when he started to repopulate after the 5-day water fast and then tested after that, what showed up was that he had more of the good bacteria, the friendly bacteria that he wanted. So his entire gut microbiome improved. And it's very interesting when you think about that, because, in nature, like when an animal is sick, what do? They stop eating. And so you think about what that does to the microbiome, and that's what happened with him. So he wasn't feeding, and then it repopulated in a much better way. And ultimately, it's the same thing for the skin. And so his skin improved. And we all notice whenever we're fasting, we get more beautiful. Our skin, radiates that health from the inside out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was tuned into the role of nutrition on our skin health when I was like 11 or 12, because my brother had really bad acne. And my mom was always into natural health, grew her own food, things like that. And so she was like, that's because he eats too much chocolate and sugar. And so I heard that. And of course, I love chocolate and sugar. And so I was like, you know what? It's not worth it, because obviously we've all felt that discomfort of having acne or something like that. Obviously with you, with eczema, I mean, ultimately when it starts to affect our appearance, that is typically a huge trigger for us to start to make changes in our lifestyle. And most teenagers, most people out there, they just don't even realize there's a link between nutrition, what's happening in our gut, and what's happening in our skin. And so we really got to get this message out. And so what have you found as far as, like, obviously we talked about fasting and how it stimulates autophagy. So how does fasting impact what's going on in the skin? You talked about the role of nutrition and basically the food we're putting in, gut health in the skin. So let's go into a little bit more depth about fasting and how it impacts the skin.
Yes. So when I first learned about autophagy was probably around 4 years ago. So I was on one of these expedition adventures, and I was in Calabria, Italy. And I was over there because the citrus bergamot fruit is grown in this very small region of Italy, Calabria. And the researchers over there were doing a lot around how when you ingest the citrus bergamot fruit, it literally improves your cholesterol profiles. It's a very rich antioxidant, polyphenol, flavanol citrus fruit. And just by ingesting it every day, you get these incredible benefits to your cholesterol profiles. And so many people are on statins, and this is something that can be taken in conjunction or a lot of people are taking it instead of, and it's quite remarkable how it lowers and then raises it lowers the the LDLs and then raises the HDLs. So anyhow, I was over there, and the lead researcher, Dr. Elizabeth Janda, was showing me how the citrus bergamot fruit was something that she was ingesting every day as a tea. And I got really excited, and I was drinking it with her because for me, wherever I am in the world, there are always these sort of like secrets or activities that go on that you don't necessarily know about in other parts. So when I was in Okinawa, the Okinawans drink, 3 to 4 to 5 cups of green tea. They eat lots of ginger. And there's so many interesting things that they do that's just part of their everyday life. So she drinks the citrus bergamot tea. And she told me the reason she did it was because it was activating her autophagy, which is where and when I first learned about it. And if you fast forward 2016, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to the Japanese biologists who discovered the mechanism of action, why autophagy is so important in our health and what it can really do to allow our bodies to live in the way that they did when they were younger and fight disease. And so this is so powerful, this information. And what I learned from Dr. Janda was that when you are activating your autophagy through foods like the citrus bergamot, there are so many amazing foods that you can eat, or you are fasting, intermittent fasting, you're getting this tremendous ability to really help your body do what it naturally wants to do. And that is like eat up the debris in the cells, detoxify the cells. And now we know more and more, if you're doing a 3-day, if you're in day 3 of a water fast, you're going to a much deeper level of detox with autophagy. So for all these years, I was always thinking, I need to detox with juices or whatever it may be. What I didn't know till about 4 years ago was that there is this natural biological process. The body is just wise beyond what we could ever imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So powerful. So I love this idea. Obviously, autophagy, just cellular cleanup, cellular detoxification. And so what you're saying is that basically doing an extended water fast is the most powerful way to initiate autophagy. But there are simple things we can be doing, like you were talking about, drinking green tea, different things like that, implementing some daily intermittent fasting strategies. And so can you go into more detail about all those types of things people can be doing to kind of get a daily dose of autophagy?
Oh, I love it. Yes. So my thoughts around it, and this came from, a lot of different researchers. So when I got back to the US after working with Dr. Elizabeth Janda and her team in Calabria, I was just obsessed. First of all, I couldn't even say the word. Once I figured out how to say it, I was obsessed with finding like all of the global experts. So I found the autophagy dermatologist, right? Dr. Richard Wang, and I found the exercise physiologist who knew, how to activate autophagy through certain types of exercises. I worked with Dr. Michael Bruce on the circadian rhythm and how that can really activate autophagy, because while we're sleeping, it's such a powerful way to activate it. So I'll give you a couple of the strategies that I use every single day that help to activate it and work hand in hand with intermittent fasting, work hand in hand with this longer fasting. And we know that fasting brings so much value. I mean, from activating the autophagy to fat loss, from helping to become metabolically flexible, reducing inflammation, enhancing that stem cell production after 3 or 4 days, reducing the ROS. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on and on. I'm working with one of my friends who's a PhD, and he's getting ready to do a debate at the university level around the power and the need to fast versus maybe not doing it. And we were going through this weekend the list of all of the benefits you get. I mean, there's like 100+ benefits. So you just can't go wrong, even if you get one of them. But with autophagy and activating it, there are ways that you can activate it in the skin. And I like that as a very simple sort of solution because you get quick results, and there are certain foods that you can eat. But what I would say for the skin, and you can put these ingredients on your skin as well as ingest them, which I always like this idea of outside and inside meeting each other. Outside meets inside. 15 years ago, while I was in Southeast Asia, I was discovering how so many women were ingesting so much collagen-rich foods and literally taking collagen supplements. And what I discovered was that they were consuming about 10 to 15 times as much as what we consume here in the US. And in the US, it really, I was so concerned when I would look around and everything was skinless, boneless, low fat, no fat. And that is so counter to collagen. So all those years ago, I got in my mind, I was like, I've got to bring collagen into the US market as a beauty from within, as a nutritional ingredient. And I'm, just so happy in today's climate. Like, people know this word collagen, they know that we can ingest it. So things that are really good for activating autophagy are like caffeine's a great example. So if you're drinking green tea, if you're drinking coffee, those things help to activate the autophagy in your skin. And you can also use products that have caffeine in them. That's really beneficial. In my book, Glow 15, I have tons of do-it-yourself recipes for the skin. Another one that's really powerful for activating autophagy internally and externally are ceramides. And you know how ceramides are found in like wheat germ. I take ceramide supplements, but ceramides are really important for someone who deals with autoimmune conditions. Ceramides are sort of like the glue that holds our skin cells together. So if we think about like a brick wall and then the mortar that's between that, the bricks, that's like the ceramides. And our skin literally leaks moisture as we get older. And so when you're replenishing the ceramides both on the skin and then you're ingesting those ceramides, you're really helping to reduce that like leaky skin syndrome. And we know about leaky gut syndrome. So again, the skin and the gut, there's always this mirror activity. I would say polyphenols. So the red wine antioxidants, resveratrol, which I am deeply passionate about. That's really what I built my company Reservage on, is the red wine antioxidant. But the citrus bergamot is another polyphenol. All of the dark berries, the dark chocolate. I mean, there's so many great ways to get good polyphenols. I also like getting polyphenols in a lot of like the tart cherry drinks. I like to get them in that way, especially because for me, I like to live a keto or high fat lifestyle. And so I'm not going to be ingesting, a lot of different sweets, of course. And so getting it in a powder where you don't have the sugar, but you still get the polyphenols, I think is a great way to do it. And then trehalose, which is actually a sweetener, but trehalose comes from mushroom, and it's something, if you can get that in your skincare, I'm not so excited about ingesting a lot of it, but I do use it periodically, and it's got about 1/7 the amount of sugar as, let's say cane sugar does. But trehalose is excellent for activating the autophagy in the skin as well.
That's really, really interesting. I always noticed when I would consume turmeric, like doing a golden tea or something like that, the next day before I knew the autophagy mechanism, I just always felt like my skin was so much softer and cleaner. And so I thought it was just the reducing inflammation. But obviously now I know it's also stimulating the autophagy with the polyphenols.
That's right. What I did with Dr. Richard Wang is I brought him like 300 ingredients. I said, okay, I want to know which of these, because I think all of these activate autophagy. And he's like, no. And that's where he came back to me and said, it's the polyphenols, it's the ceramides, it's the caffeine, it's the trehalose, the resveratrol. Turmeric is definitely one that activates the autophagy in the skin. And what he did is he looked at the different pathways to activate that autophagy. So we had a lot of fun, and I was amazed at the clinical results. I mean, reduction in fine lines and wrinkles of up to 30%.
Wow.
But literally in the petri dish, he took, there was research where he took cells, human skin cells, of someone who was in their 60s and had human skin cells of people that were in their 20s. And the people that were in their 60s, what he did is he took those cells and he utilized these ingredients and activated the autophagy. And those cells behaved like the cells that were in their 20s, just by basically utilizing these ingredients. So the science is just at the beginning, but it all ties into the gut health, the microbiome, the skin biome, fasting that can improve. I mean, you think about even one day of fasting like you're doing, or the longer 5-day water fast, and what that does to repopulate the good bacteria and the microbiome within the skin.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, it really is, in a sense, the fountain of youth, if there is one. And the cool thing about it is it's free, right? It just takes a level of willpower and, just a decision that we make to do it, and some strategies as far as how to make it more comfortable, for sure. And so like right now, I haven't eaten since 1:00 yesterday. And I'm doing this interview and I feel great. I feel fantastic. So just kind of completing a 24-hour fast, and I'll work out at the end of probably around 12:30 or so. And then after my workouts, I work out fully fasted, which stimulates more autophagy, like resistance training. I know you had mentioned exercise. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that. But, resistance training, I'm going to do a leg day actually. So some squats and sprints, things like that. And then afterwards I come home and usually I'm not even hungry, but that's typically when I break my fast, is after the workout, after I'm hydrated and everything. And so can you talk a little bit about how exercise stimulates autophagy as well? And then after that, go through kind of what you typically do on a regular basis as far as your fasting regimen.
Great question. So for me, I'm a mother of 4. I've been a busy CEO, and with all of these different pieces, I'm always looking for the easiest solutions to try to achieve the most results. So I try to do the least for the biggest results. And that, what you were just saying about, incorporating fasting into the timing of when you exercise is really, really great. And then the types of exercise that activate the most autophagy are either interval training, and I'm not like a big exerciser. I love movement, and I believe that, if it's getting up every hour, moving around, having a timer on your desk. If it's twitching, we're finding that twitching in and of itself has a huge impact on our health and exercise. So there's so many little ways that we can incorporate movement. But to activate autophagy, what you really want to do is, according to Dr. Beth Levine, who's done the majority of the research around exercise and autophagy, for 30 minutes, you're either doing interval training or you're doing resistance training. And during those 30 minutes, you're getting a real nice increase in your autophagy. But what you need to do is do it for the 30 minutes. So if it's interval training, I like to do it simply. It could be walking faster for 30 seconds, 1 minute, and then slowing down and doing that back and forth. The biggest thing for me is not putting myself through too much stress. Like, we want that acute stress. Autophagy loves acute stress, but it doesn't want any of that chronic stress. And our lives, typically, there's such a burden on all of us because we're trying to do so much more than what we would do, historically. And so if we can just be mindful of acute stress versus chronic stress and giving yourself those short bursts of it, and what you were saying about not, exercising in a fasted state, running on empty, when you're exercising, autophagy loves that. We like, in my world, what I like to do is I like to pre-game. I sort of call it pre-game with caffeine. So you get some caffeine, and that caffeine is also helping to activate the autophagy. You're not eating. And then when you do break your fast, I like to start with fat first. And, you were mentioning how much easier things are when we're fat adapted. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And for everybody that's watching, the way I look at things is, if it is really difficult and you are not enjoying the process of fasting, then you probably need to just step back a little bit, work on becoming more fat adapted. Maybe you need to detox and you need to just take those 2 steps back. So maybe you're incorporating too much sugar in your diet and that makes it feel like it's a jarring experience when you're fasting. We should never feel that way. We should always look forward to the increased energy, more focus, all of the benefits that come with fasting.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you're fat adapted, it just becomes so much easier. And you're right. Like there's times where I'm helping my family eat meals. I've got actually 3 kids. So you've got 4. I've got 3 under 3. So
Wow,
twin
okay.
boys. Yeah. And so I'm helping them out and I'll be like, oh, this food smells really good. I'd like to eat it. But at the same time, there's part of me that's just like, don't do it. I feel great right now. And so it's kind of listening to that part of myself. And I have a totally different relationship with food through it. And, I'm glad you brought up the fact that you've got 4 kids. I mean, you've been running companies, you've got 4 kids. So there's a tremendous amount of stress and demands on you. And so you've obviously had to really gain this knowledge, this kind of kinesthetic intelligence about the messages your body's telling you, because if you're trying to push it, and you're fasting and you're trying to do a high intensity exercise, you can certainly overwhelm your system. And so what are you personally doing? Like, how do you kind of monitor your own physiology and the stressors in your life? And how do you implement fasting with that?
It's exactly what you were just saying, right? So there is a language that our bodies speak to us, and tapping into that for me was the difference between like barely surviving and being in a place where I could thrive. So I want to be able to walk the walk. I want to be able to share the research and the insights that I get from all of these global experts. And in order to do that, I typically, I travel. We were checking a couple of, 2 years ago, I traveled around the globe 8 times
Wow.
in 1 year, with 4 children, being a busy CEO, and the impact of just the environment, right? The pollutants, the toxins, the environmental stressors. And then on top of that, when I look at my own health with my inflammatory and autoimmune disorders, it's like a very delicate juggle, and I can easily fall down and fall off. So I take the language that my body is communicating as what I listen to more than anything. And I'm always then reaching to the top experts, which I feel so privileged to have access to be able to help me tweak as I'm going along. So what I do is never static. I can tell you what I'm doing right now. I've been doing a 5-day water fast every 4 to 6 weeks, really to take my inflammation to a much lower level, and that's been working incredibly well. I love to eat high fat, and I really feel for us as a society, because there's so much conflicting, overwhelming, negative information that gets out there, and I'd never take the information that's out in the media at face value, right? One day they're saying, trying to frighten us not to eat the saturated fats, and really the data doesn't support that. So I make sure that the meta-analyses or the really deep research that's out there, that's where I sort of pay attention, and then I let that lead my health and my life. So I eat high fat. I eat tons and tons of coconut, avocados, macadamia nuts, pili nuts. So I love to be in a ketogenic state, and I cycle that. So I'm fasting. I'm doing intermittent fasting to activate my autophagy. I'll do that every other day. I have high days and low days. So on a high day, I'll be eating my fat adapted way, which feels great. And on a low day, I'll be reducing my protein. So I'll do this protein cycling. So a low day will be a day where I'll have about 5% of my calories coming from protein. I'm really into understanding my own biological rhythms. So, there are quizzes that we can do to see what type of bird we are. Like in my book, Low 15, I have it's that basic quiz that sort of You find out if you're a lark or if you're a super lark or if you're a night owl. And once you tap into your own biological rhythm, that helps me more than anything to create the space so that I can function in my optimal place. And every day, throughout the day, I'm constantly just sort of touching base and saying, how does my energy feel? Like once you and I are done with this interview, I'm getting on a plane and I'm traveling. And I know that during that travel time, I have to prepare. So there are certain nutrients that I take. I love berberine. I love turmeric. You know, I love the different polyphenols that activate the autophagy. There's so many ways that we can improve our health. But what I believe in more than anything, and it's like what you're doing right now, is just sourcing really good knowledge and then figuring out the simple and easy strategies that work for me. So number one, getting my biological rhythm in check, making sure that I'm feeding my microbiome with the right types of foods. So I love fermented foods, lots of polyphenols, you know, the good fats, the healthy fats. And then really just making sure that I'm not eating too often, because if I can be fasting on a regular basis, it changes the whole game.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Absolutely. And so what you're saying also is it's not necessarily cookie cutter, because you might have different stressors in your life at different times.
Yeah.
And so listening to your body and figuring out when the best time for you to do that 5-day fast, to incorporating the high and the low days is how you implement it with this really crazy busy lifestyle. I don't even know how you do it. So I don't travel anywhere near as much as you. I try to stay home around my family and get my work done. Yeah.
No, and it's the right way to do it. But you know, the other thing, there will be just one piece that I would add, and this is probably the most important nugget that I would share, is, you know, on an average day, we have over 60,000 thoughts. And what we think and what we believe, or what we are not aware that we may be thinking in our subconscious, has such a direct impact on the way that we feel, on our toxicity level, on our ability to really live the most vibrant life. So if you are paying attention to sort of that underlying thought process that's going on, and you find that you may be feeling some negativity or whatever it is, really take the time to do the meditation, take the time to listen to, you know, there's so many different ways where you can help to reprogram your mind so that you are thinking the positive, good thoughts that help you live your best life.
I love that. I love that. Just great words of final inspiration there. And where can people, I know you've got a great book, Glow 15, and you also produced the Skinny on Fat documentary series where you had Montel Williams in that as well, plus all the top researchers. In fact, I was looking through that and I'm like, oh, we need to interview these experts that, you know, that I found through you for this project that we're working on. But where can people find out more about you, get your book, and learn about the Skinny on Fat documentary series as well?
Sure. So my book, Glow 15, is all about autophagy, and it's a very simple plan. And I was humbled. It became a New York Times bestseller. And here was a word, you know, Sanjay Gupta wrote my foreword. And when he wrote the foreword, the reason he wrote the foreword for me is he said, you know, Naomi, I really want this word, this concept of autophagy to get out into the world. People need to know we have this process. And so I knew it was a bold move to write a whole book on autophagy, with most people not knowing the word. But I cannot tell you how exciting it is to see the amount of us that are understanding, wow, I have this power, I can do this. So you can definitely go to my website, which is naomiwhittel.com. Go to the Glow 15 website. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on an amazing adventure. And I love, love, love when people join me on it as we sort of discover these health and wellness secrets all over the globe.
Well, Naomi, this has been one of the most fascinating interviews that I've done really at all. And so I love the concept of autophagy. I love what you bring to the table. And, you know, I just want to thank you for all the great work that you've done getting this information out and kind of curating the top experts and getting this out into, you know, mainstream press and out into the world so people learn about it. So thank you again for that.
Oh,
Yep.
it's such a pleasure to be with you. And I'm so passionate about the work you're doing. So let's just keep sharing and
That's right.
great work.
Well, thank you so much. That means the world to me. And for you, the listeners out there, I just want to remind you that fasting has the ability to unlock the dormant healing potential within you. It's safe, it's powerful, and it just might transform your life. So we will see you soon. Be blessed.